We are now at the third video in the series on visual presentation of data. In the last video, we talked about how do you actually plan out and storyboard a figure that's going to appear on a piece of paper and be static. Here, we're going to be focused on a complementary goal of how do you design and animate data presentation slides in the context of a live presentation. So we talked in the last video about defining the goals of this figure. Okay, same thing here. If we're going to be designing a figure to use as visual aid for a talk or a presentation, you need to be prepared for the fact that you have a live audience. Okay, this live audience could be on YouTube. It doesn't really matter. They have live audience either way. And this audience is going to be trying to follow your presentation, but they're also kind of tuned out. Maybe they check their phone for a second because their kid texted them and then they come back and they miss 2 slides. Things are going to happen like that. And so you sort of need to be able to pull your audience along with you in a very curated way that you don't really have to do when you're writing, when you're making a figure for a paper. So how do you deal with this audience? That's what this video is all about. So, first and foremost, and I cannot say this more strongly enough, this is the most important thing you have to remember when you're making slides for a talk. You are the presentation, not your slides. I will say it again. When you make slides for your presentation, you are not making the talk. You are making the slides for your talk. At any point, if the slides in your presentation are taking attention away from you, that is actually your slides getting in the way of your talk, not being a good talk. Okay? The purpose of having slides in a presentation, especially about complicated things like data, is to enhance your presentation. It's to convince your audience that they can follow you, that they believe you, that you're showing them things that they understand. If at any points your slides, instead of reducing the cognitive effort of following your presentation, increases it. If it's getting in the way, it's like, I don't know what to look at. Should I listen to her or should I look at her slides? This movie is doing something and she's talking about something else. At any point, if that happens, then your slides are doing a bad job. You should be reducing the cognitive effort of following the presentation, not increasing it. So we're going to go into this video with this mindset. You are the presentation, not your slides. Okay? You're going to make slides that don't get in your way. How do you do that? You have to remember that you are the presentation. But concretely, what you need to do is focus on the narrative. We talked about this before, same exact thing. And when you're focusing on the narrative in the talk, you have to reduce the complexity of your slides. If your slides look exactly like the figures you made for your paper, then you're doing a bad job because nobody can follow something that's made for being on a piece of paper to be studied for hours at a time. Okay? So if anything on your slide shows up that draws attention away from what you're saying, it is a distraction and you should consider getting rid of it. If there's words coming up that you're not saying, that you're not talking about on a topic that's different than your presentation, you should consider getting rid of it. If there's a plot that shows up that you're not even going to talk about and you're not going to explain it, it probably doesn't need to be there. Right? Don't show extra data that you don't have time to talk about. If you don't have time to talk about it, it shouldn't be on your slide. It's really that simple. The impulse is to just jam up your slides with lots and lots and lots of things, with lots and lots of detail. If you're not ready to talk about it, it means it doesn't have to be there. And so the process of making a slide presentation that shows off data, especially complicated ideas, is this iterative process of focusing and refocusing on your narrative. What are you actually going to say? Is that the correct thing to say? And is everything on your slide going along with the flow of what you're saying instead of going everywhere else? Okay? No tangents, anything that you're not going to talk about, just get rid of it. If you have a plot that comes up and you're not even going to talk about it, it shouldn't be on your slide. And if it's on your slide and you really want to keep it on your slide, make time to talk about it. It really is that simple. Okay? The second point is that in order to use a slide presentation as a visual aid of your presentation, one of the really cool things we get to do nowadays with modern software is to use animations. It does not have to be a static slide. And the way we use animations is, once again, as a visual aid. You should avoid superfluous and flashy transitions because they detract away from you. Okay? Anytime you're looking at my slide because there's like literally a fire going on over there, you're not looking at me. And I want you to pay attention to me because I'm the one talking here. Okay, so don't do flashy transitions. They really don't do any good. And what I should do instead is to animate steps in a process as you talk about them. Now, when you're making figures on a piece of paper, it's necessarily static. Okay, somebody has to figure out by implied transition, I go from A to B to C or whatever, right? In a slide presentation, you can literally just show them A. Don't show them B yet. By the time you talk about B, B comes up as an animated step. Okay? You can animate steps in the process as you talk to them as a way of using this as a tool to supplement your presentation rather than getting in its way. And you can do that even further by breaking down complex plots and building from simple plots first. So an example of this is I showed you a couple of examples earlier, and I'll show you one in a second, of a complicated plot that actually has lots and lots of components to it. And so if you were studying it on a piece of paper or in a PDF, you might be looking at back and forth, being like, okay, there's this and there's that. Okay, I understand now. I'll go back and forth. In a talk, nobody has time to do that. And so in order to show a complicated result or a complicated plot, you actually have to draw and take your audience, curate the process of them understanding it. So if they first have to understand the axes, just show the axes. After they understand the axes, show one data point. Okay? After you understand the data point, show the 10 other data points. That's one example of how do you break down a complex plot through animation so that you can make the understanding by your audience when they're distracted and trying to pay attention to their phone as easy as possible. So they want to listen to you and understand your plot instead of checking on their phone. Okay, and the last thing, just like the other static figures, use variations in font size, boldness, and color purposefully. So a lot of the times, the impulse is to either use no color. Okay, so I don't really know what to look at when I'm looking at I looked away, I looked down my computer for a second because I got an email. I looked back up, I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. That's no good. Use font sizes, boldness, and color purposefully. So that if anyone is spaced out for even just a second, they look back at your slide, they can come back to you. They can keep following your presentation as easily as possible. And that's one of the things that you can do by using strategic things on your slide that draw the attention. So if you looked away from my slide for just a minute, you come back, the thing that you should be seeing is the thing that is the boldest and the most colorful on the slide, which is that you are the presentation, not your slides. Everything else is a way of unpacking that to make that more operationalized. So I'm trying to model what to do here in terms of using colors and fonts in your slides. Okay, so just like before, let's go through an example. I'm going to actually just show you an example from my own work from like a really long time ago. This is something that I did during my PhD. But I thought it was there are things that I actually do differently now, but I'm just going to show it to you because I think it's an illustration of the differences between what you would do for a piece of paper versus the same thing for a presentation. Okay, so here, first of all, is the thing that I did for my PhD. It doesn't really matter exactly what it is. It was a modeling project that I had done where we were modeling decision-making under uncertainty, where there was evidence coming from the left, evidence coming from the right, and there was a decision that rats and humans had to do where you go left or you go right. Okay, so this is the modeling exercise. So here's an example of the figure as it actually appeared in the paper. This is the PDF version, okay? So you can see that this is a bad idea. Don't show, I would not show this in a presentation, okay? This is what happened on PDF because it is way too much information to show at once. There is just like so many things going on here. There's Greek letters, there's like a subplot over here with different scenarios. I mean, like, if you had a lot of time, you can go through this because in the paper, it actually had an extensive set of text that went with it that was longer than the figure, okay? And so if somebody wanted to spend time with it, and some people did, I'm very grateful that they paid attention to this research, but they would read this box and actually unpacked each of the Greek letters and variables, figure, okay, so they would go back and forth and say, okay, sigma A is this thing, sigma I is this other thing. They would go back and forth and try to understand it, and then they can then take their time and unpack all of this. To actually unpack all of this takes way more time than I actually have in any presentation to go through this result. Okay? That's just the reality of the situation. It takes way too long. If I showed this in a presentation, there's no way anyone understands it. And what's going to happen is that either they're going to feel like they don't understand, or more likely, they're going to feel like it's my fault because I gave a bad talk. Like I didn't make it possible for them to understand. Nobody understands this. Okay? There's just no way. So instead, I'm going to show you how I would present the same model when I'm doing it in a slide format. And this is literally a slide that I used to do my PhD. And so the style is a little different than my style, but that's okay. So same model, exact same explanation, but here's how I would do it. So instead of having tiny text, we're going to have bigger text. And instead of having lots of equations, we're going to have one equation, just one, okay? And how we're talking about it, I actually talk about the variables. So x is the decision variable. It's actually counting the clicks on the left and right. You can see this is one simple example of an ideal integrator where I'm just counting how many left and how many right. Okay, negative being left, positive being right, and it's illustrated with the timing of the evidence coming in by these little arrows here. And I would explain what tau is. Tau infinite means that it's memory lossless, perfect. And sigma A equals 0 means that it has no noise whatsoever, okay? I would then illustrate what would happen if you assumed that the integrator is leaky, and you can kind of see that after some time passes, the memory is leaky. I would explain what happens if the memory is unstable, so it's actually drifting towards infinity instead of drifting towards 0. I would then add that there's noise in the system. So instead of having a perfect memory of the system, it's actually drifting around a little bit, having this like noisy process, a little bit of stochasticity in the equation. That's a DW term over there, okay? And finally, I'm going to add another term by saying that sometimes there's these bounds, these sticky bounds at the end, that sometimes the version of the model has, where after you hit it, you're like, you know what? I already know what's going right. I'm no longer paying attention to the rest of the evidence coming in. I'm ignoring the rest of the trial. I know I'm going right. Okay, that's it. That's the model. And so it's a really simple way of taking something that we had before that was a really overwhelming, complicated model and making it digestible by literally going through the steps. Okay, I'm making it digestible by digesting it. I'm showing you the simple thing and then adding a step and then adding a step and then adding a step. And at the very end, I've shown you the full model in the way that I showed all at once in the previous figure as I went into the figure. And so in that way, because I'm making slides for a presentation to show data, the goals of the figure are the same. I still want to be compelling. I still want storyboard's layout to be clear. I still want to be correct. I still want to be concise. But the way in which I accomplish this in animation as a visual aid for my presentation is quite different than what I would do if I were making the same figure for a piece of paper. And so the impulse is to just, use the same figure. And that's fine. Sometimes I use the same figure, but I animate it. You can like take the same final result, but instead of showing it all at once, you can break it down by showing just the axes first, and then showing one data point, and then showing one plot, and then showing one trend, and then filling it out until you finally have animated it to the full version of the plot that you had in the paper. And that's an acceptable way of achieving these goals in the context of animation, because then you're not detracting away from the presentation, you're not detracting away from yourself and your story. You're making it so that the slide is not the presentation, you're the presentation. Okay, so that's the third lecture today, this video on how to design and animate data presentations with some practical tips of how you can do this and hopefully an example that's not too embarrassing. Next up, we're going to be talking about colors.